You know, I've been sitting here a lot lately, just sitting, thinking about things I can't change, things I didn't see clearly when I should have. And the older I get, I'm 67 now, the louder those thoughts become. Not angry loud, not desperate loud, just persistent, like a knock on a door that never stops. Today, I want to talk about one of those things. Something I've never said out loud to anyone, not to my son, not to my brother, not to anyone. I want to talk about a woman named Diane and how my arrogance, my foolish, blind, senseless arrogance, cost me what might have been the most beautiful relationship of my life. I don't share this to feel sorry for myself. Lord knows I've earned my regrets. I share it because maybe someone watching this is standing where I once stood. And maybe, just maybe, they'll make a different choice than I did. It was 1987. I was 28 years old. I was working as a mid-level manager at a manufacturing company in Cincinnati. Nothing glamorous, but I was climbing. Promotions came. Confidence grew. And with that confidence came something dangerous. The feeling that I had more time than I actually did. That the world was waiting for me. That people, the right people, would wait too. I wore that confidence like armor. Always the sharpest dressed in the room, always the one with the answer before the question was finished, always in control. I wasn't cruel. I want to be clear about that. I wasn't unkind. I was just certain that I knew what I wanted, when I wanted it, and how things would unfold, and that certainty, it made me careless with other people's hearts. Diane worked in the accounting department on the 3rd floor. I remember the first time I saw her, not because it was some dramatic movie moment, though maybe it should have been. I remember it because I was already on my way somewhere, always on my way somewhere in those days, and she was standing by the elevator reading a report, and she looked up and smiled, not at me specifically, just smiled, the way some people do, like the world itself is something worth smiling at. I thought, interesting, and I kept walking. Over the next few months, Diane and I crossed paths regularly. Company lunches, project meetings, the break room on Tuesday mornings when we both, by coincidence, arrived at exactly the same time. We talked. Easily. That's the word I keep coming back to. Easily. You have to understand, in those days I was not a man who talked easily with anyone. I was transactional in conversation, purpose-driven. I said what needed to be said and moved on. But with Diane, I'd find myself still standing in that break room 20 minutes later, having forgotten entirely what I came for. She had this way of asking questions that weren't really questions. They were invitations. What do you think makes someone truly successful, Gerald? Not professionally, I mean in here. And she'd touch her chest lightly when she said it. I'd laugh it off, give some clever surface-level answer, and she'd look at me, not disappointed exactly, but patient, like she knew there was something deeper in me that hadn't shown up yet, and she was willing to wait. I told myself I wasn't interested, that she was sweet, but I had goals, that I didn't have time for something that might complicate things. What I didn't admit to myself, what I refused to see, was that I was frightened, not of her, of what she made me feel. Because with Diane, I couldn't be in control. And control was everything to me back then. Let me tell you about 3 moments. 3 moments where the door was wide open and I walked past every single one. The first was a company picnic in June of '88. Diane had saved me a seat. A small thing, maybe, but she'd gotten there early and she put her jacket over the chair beside her. When I arrived, late as usual, distracted, she waved me over. I saw it. I made a show of saying hello, then sat 3 tables away with the senior managers. I told myself it was networking. What it really was performance. I needed to be seen with the right people. I didn't look back at her, but a colleague told me later with a kind of uncomfortable smile, "You know, Diane looked for you whole afternoon." I shrugged it off. The second moment was November of that same year. I had to stay late to finish a budget review. So did she. Different project, different floor. But she came and knocked on my office door around 9 o'clock and asked if I wanted to get dinner. "Everything else is closing," she said, "but there's a diner 2 blocks over. Good pie." Good pie. I still hear that. I told her I had too much to finish. She nodded, completely gracious, and said, "All right, Gerald, take care of yourself." That was it. She left. I sat there for another hour and a half, not working, just sitting, thinking about what I'd just turned down. Then I told myself it was the right call. Priorities, focus, no distractions. The third moment was February 1989, Valentine's Day. A cliché, I know, but she had left a card on my desk, just a card, no name on it, but I knew. Everyone on that floor would have known. It was from her. Inside it said only, "Some people come into your life like a door left open on a warm day. I hope you'll walk through it sometime." I read it. I set it down. I finished my work. I went home. I never said a word about it, to her or to anyone else. I told myself I didn't want to encourage something I wasn't ready for. What I was actually doing was protecting my pride, because to respond meant to be vulnerable, and vulnerable was the one thing Gerald Mitchell did not do. 3 open doors. 3 times I walked away. By the summer of 1989, Diane had started pulling back. Of course she had. How long can a person hold a door open for someone who won't walk through? She was still warm, still professional, but the Tuesday morning conversations got shorter. The invitation stopped. She smiled when we passed in the hallway, but it was a different smile. Not cold, just protected, I noticed. And what did I feel? Relief. That's the honest answer. I felt relief that the discomfort of resisting her had resolved itself, that I could breathe easy again, that I was back in control of my very organized, very focused, very empty life. And then, in September, I heard through the grapevine that she'd started seeing someone, a teacher, quiet fellow, liked the outdoors, and I felt, and I can barely explain this even now, I felt cheated, as if she'd taken something that was mine, something I hadn't even chosen to want until the moment I couldn't have it. That's arrogance for you. You don't want the thing. But the moment it's no longer available, the possession instinct kicks in. The ego says, wait, that was supposed to be an option. I was angry for weeks, quietly, privately furious. And I dressed that fury up in all kinds of excuses. She'd moved too fast. He probably wasn't right for her, These things never work out anyway. Every single one of those thoughts was a lie. I told myself so I wouldn't have to face the truth. The truth was simple. I had been offered something rare, and I had thrown it away out of pride. I did marry in 1994. Her name was Lorraine. We had a son together, Marcus. He's 38 now. Lorraine and I were together for 11 years before we divorced. She was a good woman, deserved better than a man who was still emotionally sealed shut. I've had time to reflect on that marriage too, and I see now how the patterns I refused to break with Diane, the armor, the control, the inability to be truly seen, followed me right into that home, like I carried them in boxes and unpacked them in every room. Diane, I heard, married the teacher, had 2 children, moved to Oregon. I was told she was happy, genuinely, deeply happy. The kind of happy that comes from being with someone who actually showed up. I ran into a mutual colleague at a conference in 2003. She mentioned Diane without knowing the full history between us. Said, "You remember Diane from Cincinnati?" God, she was one of those people who just made everyone around her better, wherever she went. I said, "Yes, I remember." And I went back to my hotel room and sat on the edge of the bed for a long time. I'm not telling you this story for sympathy. I made my choices. Adults make choices and live with them. That's just life. But I've thought about why I did what I did. Not to excuse it, to understand it. Because understanding is the only useful thing you can do with a regret. The first thing I understand now is this: arrogance is almost always fear wearing a suit. I didn't reject Diane because I was confident. I rejected her because she threatened the self-image I'd spent years constructing. She saw through it, gently, without malice, and that terrified me. So I called it not being ready. I called it priorities. But it was fear, plain and simple. The second thing, we confuse control with strength. I was very good at being in control. I thought that was strength. But real strength, the kind that Diane had in abundance, is the ability to be open, to let someone matter to you, knowing it makes you vulnerable. That's not weakness. That's the bravest thing a human being can do. I didn't know how to be brave that way, and I paid for it. The third thing, time is not a currency you can save and spend later. At 28, I had this quiet belief that I had infinite time, that I could afford to wait, to postpone, to say not yet, that the right moment would come back around. It doesn't. People move on, life moves on, opportunities have a lifespan, and yours runs out faster than you think. And the fourth, maybe the most painful. Some people come into your life with a specific purpose, not to stay forever necessarily, but to open something in you, to show you what's possible. If you reject them, you don't just lose them, you lose the version of yourself they were trying to call forward. I lost Diane, but more than Diane, I lost the man I might have become in her presence. That man might have been more patient, more honest, more willing to be known. He might have been a better husband, a more present father. I don't know. I'll never know. And that's the weight of it. If you're young and watching this, or even not so young, and there's someone in your life who sees you, who's patient with you, who leaves the door open even when you keep walking past it. Don't be me. Don't let your pride convince you that being needed is weakness. Don't let your ambition tell you that love is a distraction. Don't spend your best years being impressive to people who won't remember you, while someone who actually sees you is standing quietly at your elbow, waiting, because I promise you, you will be 67 years old someday, sitting in a chair by a window, and you will think of them, and all the promotions, and all the control, and all the armor. None of it will be warm company. Her card said, "Some people come into your life like a door left open on a warm day. I hope you'll walk through it sometime." I should have walked through it, Diane. I should have walked right through.